I'm Marvel. This channel exists to connect gamers to MMOs they'll love. In this video, we cover everything you need to know if Guild Wars 2 is right for you. While the base game is entirely free, you can enjoy all 3 feature-rich expansions for the same price as New World, except Guild Wars 2 actually works. Timestamps and links to sources are below. Thanks for watching and subscribe for more MMO content. Guild Wars 2 does mounts so correctly that the apex of World of Warcraft's creativity is essentially stealing the mechanics and animations of the Griffin. Still more, Guild Wars 2 has better mounts than any game I've ever played, even single-player RPGs. Sorry, Roach. There are 9 unique mounts to collect and train that fundamentally change the way you traverse Tyria. These are not mere cosmetic speed boosts. They solve actual traversal obstacles and unlock new content. Moreover, not only are their animations absolutely gorgeous, you have to earn to ride them. Each one is acquired through grounded gameplay that not only adds to the fantastic world building in Tyria, yet also teaches you how to use each one. Each mount specializes in solving a particular topographical problem. The Raptor is quick and can leap across long distances. The Springer is slow, yet can jump onto high cliffs. The Jackal's Mirage Translocation enables you to teleport creatively. The Griffin allows you to glide, covering vast distances quickly. The Skimmer enables you to move fast on top and beneath the waves. The Roller Beetle is the fastest land mount, yet with the most difficult control schema. The Warclaw is primarily useful in Guild Wars 2's open world PvP mode, which we'll cover later. The Skyscale is more or less a dragon helicopter, and the Siege Turtle is a multi-user battle tank. But how do you train mounts? Guild Wars 2's alternate advancement system is called Mastery and replaces levels once you hit level 80. When you hover your reticle over a player's name who has at least 1 mastery point, their mastery number will render instead. Although a higher number does not necessarily correlate with skill, it is a function of content completeness. Each zone is associated with a type of mastery point. When you earn enough experience to level up, you instead can use a mastery point you've saved up. They provide a wide range of benefits, including the ability to train your mounts, enhancing the utility of your glider, which is obtained in the Hearts of Thorns expansion, developing resistances against ecological effects, earning reputation with certain vendors, accessing beneficial flora, using teleportation mechanisms, and more. Points are obtained by completing main quest stories, locating them within the game world, completing various side quests, including certain meta events. But what's a meta? Metas are arguably the most distinguishing PvE feature in Guild Wars 2. No other MMO comes close. ESO tries to compete with their own version of zone events, yet the scale and intensity don't match ArenaNet's flawless implementation of zone-wide large-scale meta events. For example, imagine that the public event system from Warhammer Online spanned the entire map that culminated in an encounter as intricate as a public raid. Well, in some ways their city assaults were close, yet instead of PvP content, these are mostly dynamic PvE encounters. The Heart of Thorns expansion made ample use of this system, with the result that many of its maps are still heavily played, even today. Imagine going back to a zone in Wrath of the Lich King in retail WoW, only to see areas completely full of players engaging in heart-throbbing overworld content. Guild Wars 2's metas are that good. For those who are new to Guild Wars 2, this MMORPG is well known for its event system that more or less has replaced standard questing typical in the genre. Instead of low-tro-style kill X or collect Y quests, you'll be completing overworld content in a string of related events. Meta events take this idea a level further. These are zone-wide, culminating productions that require dozens of players to cooperate in order to be successful. They're not trivial either, so if you're looking for a challenge, these will not disappoint. Speaking of disappointment, or the lack thereof, Guild Wars 2 is the best MMORPG for respecting your time. Every action you perform benefits your account, not just your character, so you always feel like even 15 minutes is enough to progress. The Elder Scrolls Online is finally taking the hint. Your mastery level is also account-wide, so alts pick up where you left off. Mounts are shared, so you only have to unlock them and train them once. There are shared inventory spaces, so special items can be accessed no matter which tune you're playing. With that said, in his Guild Wars 2 vs Final Fantasy XIV video, Wooden Potatoes has rightly discerned that the former MMO emphasizes short-term satisfaction, whereas the latter selects for long-term payoffs. While there are progression opportunities that span months to years detailed later in this video, Guild Wars 2 is at its best when you're zoned into its moment-to-moment gameplay, especially with your friends. To that end, you can join up to 5 guilds simultaneously, because we all know how easy it is to get all of your buddies to play together. As a husband, father, working professional, I don't have the luxury anymore of dedicating 8 hours on a single night to raid with a static group, but I can enjoy a 30-minute meta that rewards me with enough materials to either sell to other players or craft an upgrade. Crafting in Guild Wars 2 is often overlooked, despite being impressively robust in the genre. Using a type of discovery system, you have to uncover recipes for yourself. Or, as most players do, including myself, you can just use the wiki or other player-developed tools instead. Since the developers enable you to expose your account's API key, you can programmatically know which recipes need to be learned in order to level a trade skill the cheapest or the fastest. Thus, Guild Wars 2's crafting system suffers from metagaming just like some raids have in WoW. Certain mechanics can be safely trivialized due to the usage of add-ons, but APIs can't replace your brain. So Mukluk has a superb tutorial covering everything you need to know about the basics of crafting. Regardless, forging an upgrade for your character is rewarding because you know you won't have to do it again. What do I mean? Gear progression in Guild Wars 2 is horizontal, not vertical. Instead of stat squishing every expansion, and thus effectively having a horizontal power curve over time anyways, Guild Wars 2 has never suffered from the conventional grind treadmill. This is because gearing for in-game content is relatively quick and affordable, at least for initial access. For example, there are 3 tiers of in-game gear: Exotic, Ascended, and Legendary. All in-game content can be done with exotic items, which a new player can earn in about a week. In other words, once you have exotic gear, you never have to run the gear treadmill again. Of course, you still can, as Ascended gear provides around a 10% increase in numbers. Legendary gear has the same stats as Ascended, except that you can switch the statistical distribution of your equipment anytime. For example, Strength is called Power in Guild Wars 2. If you no longer want power on your legendary sword because you instead want to heal more, you can choose to swap out that stat for healing power, and so on. Thus, legendary items only offer the player increased utility, not power. Capping power also extends into PvP. In Guild Wars 2, all PvP is equalized so that every participant has an equal numerical chance to win with respect to their character sheet. If you compete in structured PvP matches, you can even use gear you don't yet own within that PvP game mode to ensure your win or loss is a function of your ability, not equipment alone. Even if you are not level 80, Guild Wars 2 automatically upscales you as if you were. There is so much more to PvP that if you want a deeper dive, check out Blindside's ultimate PvP tutorial video. If the joy of standing victoriously over a virtual carcass is not satisfying enough, playing in these modes grants PvP experience that contributes towards a rank and a reward track. Reward tracks are a repeatable method of deterministically choosing which rewards you want as you progress through the track. For example, if you wanted to unlock the entire Aura armor and weapon set, yet have no desire to run that dungeon in Tyria, you can unlock it entirely through the Ruined City of Aura dungeon PvP track. That way, PvP players can access much of the cosmetic content typically available to PvEers. While tongue-in-cheek, Guild Wars 2 is infamously known as Fashion Wars 2, and for good reason. To my knowledge, it was the first MMORPG to introduce such a robust cosmetic system, even as far back as April 2014. They beat WoW to the punch here too. By now a familiar feature in MMOs, any item you wear unlocks that skin that can be used anytime on that slot as long as your character can use that type of equipment. For example, a Revenant can use any heavy armor skin unlocked for the account yet cannot wear light armor robes. There is a robust dye system too to find your perfect look. It's a deep system, one which Heroic Flamingo covers for the insatiably curious. Yet sometimes the item you want is locked behind a paywall. Guild Wars 2's monetization system is decent to great, depending on how generous our attitude is. Typical nomenclature around pay to win hardly applies here for a few reasons. Number 1, that term should stop being used because it has no common definition. For example, the word Norn is only as useful as everyone who hears it knows what a Norn is. Its utility immediately stops the moment someone thinks a Norn is a Sylvari or conflates the two entirely. Number 2, Guild Wars 2 is fundamentally a collaborative, not a competitive, MMORPG. Since mobs are tagged openly and harvesting nodes are instanced, any additional power you have in a PvE environment helps those around you. So even if you were to buy a full set of Ascended equipment using the gold purchased with cash, it would be pay to help, not pay to win. Moreover, since PvP equalizes all statistical numbers, any advantage you thought you could purchase fades away into the mists. With that said, Guild Wars 2 does seem to hold the most striking cosmetic options behind a paywall, a decision I personally find distasteful. I wish there were better in-game ways to earn such costumes other than trading gold for gems, but at least you can exchange in-game currency for premium gems, and vice versa. Moreover, like its predecessor Guild Wars 1, there is no subscription, so you only have to buy once to play forever. Since we are talking about gear, Guild Wars 2 takes a unique approach to how your equipment tactically affects your character in combat. As a vestige from Guild Wars 1, some of your skills are limited to the weapon you have equipped. There are exceptions to this guideline, yet a fundamental component of each class is which weapons they can wield. Moreover, just because two classes wield the same weapon does not mean they have identical skills. A Weaver using a sword will have a completely different array of skills than a Revenant. It's recommended to experiment with all the various weapons your class can use to see which combination you prefer for a given type of content. Yet, if you are hoping to use a weapon your class cannot, you may find respite in Guild Wars 2's prestige class system, called Specializations. Specializations are advanced classes in Guild Wars 2 that extend, modify, enhance, or invert the playstyle of a base profession. Each class, called Professions in Guild Wars 2, now has 3 specializations they can become as a result of the 3 released expansions. Note, this is not the same at all as Retail WoW's class specializations. They got that wrong too. In Guild Wars 2, a specialization is an advanced class that changes the way your base profession plays, closer to Black Desert Online's Awakening system. While each one cannot be toggled on simultaneously, they can be stored and retrieved outside of combat easily through either manually toggling them or via a newer feature called build templates. The value here is that there are functionally 36 classes to learn to play, collaborate with, or compete against. That's a ton of content. But there's more. The profession you choose, the specialization you select, and the equipment you wear all affects how you perform and what you can do on the battlefield. While this video is not a tutorial, I recommend Josh Strife Hayes' newbie guide to this end. It is important to understand precisely what is unique about Guild Wars 2 combat system compared to other MMOs. Similar to Path of Exile, in which you want to maintain uptime on buffs or flask effects, Guild Wars 2 uses an extensive boon and condition system that the most effective players utilize to their advantage. Mighty Teapot published a video that goes into encyclopedic detail covering each one. As to not to be redundant, what's important here is that each encounter is a puzzle to solve optimally. How many conditions can you strip from your opponent? How many can you transform into boons for yourself? How many conditions can you clear from your team? How many boons can you maintain uptime that benefit your build? Yet boons and conditions are just the beginning. Many viewers may not be aware that there's a combo system in Guild Wars 2. While not emphasized frequently, using them effectively punishes your foes and benefits your friends. For example, as a Weaver, I can drop a Fire Aura by Ring of Fire, and then leap through it via Flame Uprising, with the result that I now have a damage shield. If you loved those party skills in Chrono Trigger, you'll feel its effects here. In short, when an elemental AoE is on the ground, there are 4 ways to form a combo: blasting on it, leaping through it, shooting something through it, or whirling within it. Each of these is called a finisher. Each element and finisher has their own unique effect, so knowing what is on the ground and which skills interact with them can help shift the tide of battle. But to be fair, all the various combo fields do contribute to screen clutter that reduces battle clarity. On the other hand, each class and specialization has their own unique mechanics that add another engaging layer to the dance of combat. Similar to race mechanics in Warhammer 2 Total War that add a signature dimension to their playstyle, each profession in Guild Wars 2 has special mechanics that differentiate from one another. And this observation extends to specializations too. For example, similar to bending in The Last Airbender, the Elementalist, by default, can cycle through 4 elements instead of being limited to only 2 rows of weapon skills. But its specialization class, the Weaver, can mix and match these together to create 6 new elemental attacks per weapon the Weaver can use. So that's 30 new skills with which to play. Unlike in Star Wars The Old Republic or Retail WoW, in which expansions take away or replace your abilities, Guild Wars 2 adds more. Who would have thought that an amusement park is more enjoyable with more rides, not less? Speaking of game modes, you can also fight underwater as a bona fide play area with unique skills, weapons, and mount involvement. But if you need a break from combat, what can you do? While there is a personal instance in Guild Wars 2, it's admittedly forgettable and useful only to collect some daily rewards. The real housing is via guild halls. Instead of having only a single plot in WildStar or Ultima Online, you can customize an entire hall, essentially a city as large as a typical zone. There are 4 from which to choose that correspond to areas in each expansion. Typically, these are collaborative efforts that rely on guild members to provide raw materials, crafting expertise, and architectural planning to ensure NPCs, buildings, upgrades, hiring NPCs, and more go to plan. If you loved town development in Star Wars Galaxies, you'll love planning your own hall in Guild Wars 2. Yet, you have to get the materials or the funds for these upgrades. But how and where? There are over 70 zones in which to adventure, explore, harvest, craft, and fight. Whether you prefer frigid mountains, volcanic islands, a literal dragon's back, an ancient seabed, sprawling city centers, endless deserts, deep tunnels underwater, to a valley entirely dedicated to partying, there is compelling overworld content for you. Moreover, if you love that zone so much that you continue to play, Guild Wars 2 doesn't penalize you for your interest. You can earn map bonus rewards that alternate each week, so you always have a reason to either stay or return. It never loses its relevance, and its worth will never diminish as a result of new content. But for those who have already played through the content, when does more come out? While Muckluck has a detailed video covering the history of Guild Wars 2's living world, for those new to the MMORPG, content is released roughly triannually, packaged similarly to Final Fantasy XIV or WoW patch cycles, in which you can expect a new zone, metas, cosmetics, feature improvements, instant story content, and perhaps other aspirational content like fractals, raid strikes, or dragon response missions. But what are those? Before WoW had Mythic Plus, Guild Wars 2 had Fractals. Beginning to see a pattern? Initially released in 2012, this series of micro-dungeons with increasingly difficult mechanics and modifiers has been regularly supported by ArenaNet. Currently, there are 21 Fractals to play through, which are available once you hit level 80. They are available via either ad hoc selection or a daily roulette in scale and difficulty, with the hardest ones yielding the most rewards. Fractals functionally replace dungeon content, which deserves an honorable mention here, although the latter are mostly used to farm cosmetics instead of empowering your character. For a more detailed guide on Fractals, I recommend Kiosika's excellent video. In terms of lore, the mists are the fundamental element of the universe, and Fractals are potential realities. That's why you can repeat them, because they never happened, at least outside of the mist. But Fractals are just the beginning of aspirational group content in the Guild Wars 2 endgame. Introduced in the most recent Living World season, Dragon Response missions are callbacks to Vanquishing mode in Guild Wars 1, in that you enter difficult group-based instant content in which you can raise the difficulty and recruit NPCs to fight with you. These tend to be quicker to complete than Fractals, yet force groups to understand the fundamental mechanics of Guild Wars 2's combat system in order to succeed efficiently. There are 10 to conquer that rotate on a daily tempo. But what if you want to engage in even more difficult content? Strikes are a stepping stone content to raids, the ultimate PvE experience in Guild Wars 2. These are 10-member squad content that, like response missions, are on a daily rotation. Depending on the time of year, there could be up to 12 available strikes to learn, each of which having 1 to 6 raid boss-like encounters. If half a dozen stages is sounding like a raid, then that's the pedagogical goal of this in-game system, which leads us to the most difficult PvE content available in Guild Wars 2. Raids are the apex and culmination of difficult aspirational group-based PvE content in Guild Wars 2. There are 7 raids to master, each of which consists of 3 to 4 multi-layered and mechanically dense boss encounters. They test every element of mastery in Guild Wars 2 to perfect precision. Every encounter brings you face to face with the most dangerous foes in Tyria, and completing these challenges are the only way to earn materials needed to craft legendary armor. There are even guilds who specialize in training players who aspire to, yet cannot complete these most difficult encounters. So if you're looking to either face Guild Wars 2's most feared enemies, or help bring others along in the journey, raids will keep you satisfied and smiling. That's what she said. Of course, there are miscellaneous details worthy of mention. First, ArenaNet has recently implemented DirectX 11 to improve performance. Secondly, there is a robust community of third-party tools available should they pique your interest, such as a reticle for easy mount access or an overlay to show where collectibles are. Third, Guild Wars 2 has an impressive festival calendar during which entire zones open up to enjoy. Fourth, Jumping puzzles are a hallmark of content to enjoy, which tests the player's ability to properly traverse the game world. To the unfamiliar, this modified content is supported by the developers, in which actual puzzles exist within the game world to complete. Fifth, there is an impressive content creation community orbiting the MMORPG. I would be remiss if I didn't mention Dolphy, a supremely appreciated YouTuber and guide crafter for Guild Wars 2. If you're looking for an answer, you'll find it either on her YouTube channel or her website. Sixth, you can finally fish from a customizable boat. Seventh, you can uniquely build Jade bots to enhance your chosen playstyle. Note, the latter 2 points are only available to owners of End of Dragons. Postscript 2. Guild Wars 2's base game and first 2 expansions are currently on sale for only $15 through Prime Gaming. This is the equivalent of being a fat kid in a candy store, except you have access to every bin for less money than it costs to buy a meal from Chipotle. So, is Guild Wars 2 right for you? Since the base game is free, there's no fiscal risk in trying. And because there's no gear treadmill to grind, whether you're new or a returning player, there's no catching up required. Just jump in and enjoy Tyria. Thanks for watching.